Okay. So, how do I make? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Technology. Okay. So let's get into it, guys. Um, One of the deaths that shocked my community the most was the suicide of a Sunday school teacher and youth counselor, Ayanda M. She was active in our church and several community projects. Ayanda mentored many and loved connecting people. Was she unkempt, withdrawn, depressing to be around? Absolutely not. She was encouraging, thoughtful, and went out of her way to attend to and organize events. Often she looked good and she was always put together. She was who we aspired to be when we grew up. Did we ever ask her how she was doing, if she was hurting, or if she needed someone to listen to her for once? No. We bought into the mask and couldn't see the pain hiding under the surface. Ayanda's life was one of a kind, but unfortunately, her story is not. Many who have felt the impact of a friend's suicide say the same thing. I had no idea she was suffering. She was the last person I would ever have expected to do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to our discussion on a very important topic, how to smile for real. This is a topic on high-functioning depression in the strong African woman. Before we get into that, let me introduce myself and then I'll introduce our guest. My name is Dr. St. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a public health specialist. I'm also a wellness coach and the founder of AfroFemme. AfroFemme is a women's wellness community, which is a platform for a safe space housed on a Facebook private group. And it's also a platform where we provide resources for mental wellness for women. So one of the things we do on AfroFemme is we also give resources in forms of experts and professionals who come with these very important resources that we so badly need as African women. That's why today we have our very special guest, Dr. Chido Rwafa-Madzvamutse. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did. You nailed it.
I've been practicing for quite some time. You are so welcome. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself before we get into today's topic.
Okay. Before we start, I have a few people in the waiting room. If you let them so that we don't miss anybody. I'm getting a few messages from people in the waiting room. But yeah, my name is Chido, and I'm first of all a wife and a mother. I think I'm a woman today. I think the most important thing to say is I'm a woman. I'm an African woman. I'm a wife. I'm a mom, and I'm a Zimbabwean trained psychiatrist. Very proud to have been trained in Zimbabwe. And I've got a passion for awareness in the community about mental health issues. We can't seek for help for something that we don't see. So I think, particularly in our community, we need to be more aware. And thank you for inviting me on this platform. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. It's such an honor to have you here, and we're just willing to learn so much from you. So we're assuming that the audience we have today is reasonably learned people who have heard about mental wellness, they've heard about mental health, and they know what depression is. But do we really understand what depression is as professionals, as women?
I think it's very important for to us to start there, because particularly professional women, busy women, busy moms, sometimes we think we know what it is because we've got a picture of what depression is. I think in the story you started with, I think that was an excellent story to start with, to say just because someone doesn't look disheveled and they don't look like they're falling apart does not mean that they may not be struggling with depression. Depression, by definition, is a sad mood, an irritable mood for more than 2 weeks. That's the basic definition. There's then other things that come with it, things like lack of energy or feeling tired or feeling like what you need to do just takes more energy out of you. Doesn't mean that you are spending the whole day in bed. It's just an effort to do what you need to do. And also, there are other additional symptoms, things like insomnia or trouble sleeping, changes in appetite, changes in concentration levels, changes, negative thinking that can creep in. Yeah, and then right at the sort of the worst of it, then you may then get thoughts of suicide and even, sadly, completed suicides. So it's not as as complicated as people might think. You don't need to have been admitted to a psychiatric unit for you to have depression. You can have depression when you're functional, you're going to work, you're taking care of the kids, you're doing it all, but you're sad and it's taking more out of you than you ever than it ever did in the past.
Okay, so we've heard what depression is, but now today's topic, we're talking about that ever elusive smiling depression. They call it smiling depression, they call it high functioning depression. What exactly is that, Dr. Chido?
It's a very interesting term because it's in the diagnostic manual. I'm sure there are doctors here who know about the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. It doesn't exist there because it is a term that is in the community. But that is why it's important. People identify with it. If you say it, people will be like, yeah, I think I've got that. But basically it is, like I said, someone who may be sad most of the time, but they can continue functioning. They can continue doing what they need to do. But it takes more energy out of them. Some people also believe that this may be a form of dysthymia, which is a type of subclinical depression where you don't meet the diagnostic criteria for of a major depressive episode, but you've got a lot of the symptoms. They're just milder than everybody else's, and you sort of can push through them. Particularly personalities that are very high functioning already, high achieving, perfectionistic, go-getter mentalities, where they struggle to fall into the sick role, to say there might be something wrong here. Really struggle to change it, say, okay, I might need some help. There are people who are like that, and they really then struggle to admit that there might be a problem. But it is depressive symptoms. That's what it is. The severity may differ, and that is where the masks come in, where you then put on a face, you put on a mask. I think we're putting on of masks these days, but the mask I mean is it's like war paint. We used to call makeup war paint. I don't know if it's still called that anymore. But you put on your war paint, you go to war, and no one knows what's going on inside, and you're crumbling inside. The outward, a smile is supposed to be an outward expression of an inner state, but a smile can be fake. It can be well manicured, so that I look like I'm happy inside, when in fact I'm just trying to hide whatever pain is going on inside. Yeah.
Oh, so basically we're just using that smile to hide what's going on inside, and what's inside can be pain and this trauma and this depression. Is it true? I was reading earlier that people with this high functioning depression have a higher chance of committing suicide, mostly because of the depressed people, they have more energy to do it, as compared to people who are depressed and they're maybe in bed, they can't get out of bed, they're really you know, they're just so depressed, they can't even think of killing themselves, just to put it bluntly. But someone who's high functioning can go out there and can say, okay, let me make a plan and do this. Is that something that's there? Is that a link?
I think the thing with suicide is the biggest risk factor for suicide is always depression or depressive symptoms. And that's something that's not always talked about. People sort of think whatever incidents will be going on, you know, the questions that people ask after suicide: what happened? What happened that day? What happened? What was going on? What was the trigger? When in fact it could be untreated. In fact, that's the biggest risk factor: untreated, unmanaged depression over a very long period of time. And so the issue with more high functioning people is just the shock that we all get when it happens, because we have manicured this facade, this mask for so long, that when then you crumble and then decide to take your life, people are more shocked by it. I wouldn't say that it's more likely to happen. The risk factor of depressive symptoms is usually the issue that you've been depressed, or you've had these feelings for a long time and you're starting to feel hopeless or helpless, or you feel like there's no way out. Hopelessness is also one of the key indicators for suicide. So someone might think, oh, I'm that bad, my symptoms are not that bad, but hopelessness is in, and you feel trapped, powerless, and finding no other way out. And this is fed by also those negative thoughts of there's no way out of this, I can't do this anymore, and then you end up attempting to. So suicide also in women, which is important for us to note, a lot of women don't use very violent methods of attempting suicide. Usually it's self-poisoning along those sort of routes. And then there's always that picture around that to say, did you really want to die? Was this like a cry for attention? That sort of thing. But you know, whenever suicidal, just to mention it this here now, that it's very important that even if someone doesn't seem like they'll do it, if they mention it, or they just mention that I would rather sleep and not wake up, that's something to wake up to say, okay, let's do something about this now. It doesn't matter how good you look or how well you're doing. Yeah.
It's really sad when that happens. And that shock, you're so right, when you're like, but they were fine, they were functioning, they were okay. And I think that's so true. It's that shock more than the fact that they have high functioning depression. So one of the important things we're talking about today, and I want people to put comments here, if you are under that definition of a strong African woman, why are African women prone to getting high functioning depression? Or why are we talking about African women here? What's so special about them?
Okay. I think, first of all, African women, before I go into the African part, are women, first of all. So women are more prone to depression than men. Depression occurs twice as commonly in women than it does in men. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist in men, it actually does, and that's a whole topic for another day in terms of how depression presents differently in men than it does in women. But just zoning in on women, there are a number of reasons why we are prone, we are vulnerable towards depression, just women in general. Before I go to African women, there are things about hormonal changes that occur that can then trigger depression. The childbearing process can also be a time of sensitivity. The antenatal period, the peripartum period when you have the baby, and postnatally after the baby, women are very much at risk. Then zoning into on Africa, it's also the social and cultural expectations that are with us. There's an expectation to be strong. In a tough world, most of Africa, you have to be strong because the environment that you'll be in is very tough, whether it's economically, sociopolitically, it will be tough. And you are required to be strong. I remember one of the things that young women are told when they have a baby Um, they will be told, at least in my culture, they'll be told you shouldn't cry when you've got a baby in your arms. So for the time that you have an infant, you shouldn't be prone to just letting your ear. You now need to be strong. You need to be strong for your child. I've seen it again with young widows or even older widows, women who have lost their husbands. No, 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 no. You need now to be strong for your children. You need to be strong for the family. So there's an expectation for strength and for coping and for making a plan where they need to be. There's also an issue about juggling multiple roles. So very much so in Africa, we have now entered, and for the last few maybe decades now, a phase where women are allowed to really be whoever they want to be. You can choose a career and you can have some sort of facilitation to be able to do that. But unfortunately, all the other responsibilities of womanhood have not been taken away. So you are expected now, you're a doctor, Dr. Steve, but then you're also expected to do the traditional wifely duties. You're expected to do the traditional domestic duties. And that puts people under strain because they're wearing a number of hats. They're wearing the wife and the mother hat. They're wearing the daughter-in-law hat. They're wearing the job hat now and the career hat and all that comes with that. And that's a lot of pressure that modern African women are having to face and navigate. And then there's also the risks of domestic and gender-based violence. I know it's not only in Africa, but I think it is pretty bad in Africa that women are exposed to gender-based violence, and that also puts us at risk of mental health and psychological challenges, that physical and vulnerability that comes with that. And then the loss of the traditional support systems, particularly around running homes. So in the past, after you have a child, I'll again refer to my culture, you'd be given a young cousin, a young niece, and they'd call a mureri, the one who then helps you to raise the child. So you would not be alone. But those structures have gone now, and usually you'll be pretty much on your own. Again, some of the support that would come with raising a family, it's just there anymore. The sisterly support, the motherly support, where you would have your mother, your aunties, all of that. Now we are living more and more in a very core family sort of model, and that is very tough because again those roles come in. It's juggling a lot. Yeah.
It's but just to break you in thought there, Chido. You're talking about juggling. There's this very famous CEO of a company, a Zimbabwean company, and you know that lifestyle of she has it all. She's a CEO. She's married. She's got kids. She's, doing it all, traveling, vacations with the family, and all that. But when she was asked, how do you do it all? How do you do it? You seem like you're just juggling and it's all going well. And she's like, no, I'm juggling, but when I catch one ball, the other ball will drop. And if the other if I catch one ball, or if I don't, or if it doesn't drop, I'll catch it just before it falls. So basically, for her to get into one sphere of her life, another part is suffering, and she just there's no such thing as having it all. And that is why these women we are under so much pressure to just have it all. Is there such a thing as having it all, or is that aspiration to have it all, the job, the family, the traditional roles, can we do that, or is it just a dream?
I think there's a lot in terms of our own expectations of ourselves. And I think we'll talk about positive strength versus negative strength. I think there's that over expectation that I have to do everything. And many women struggle just to delegate, to say, I'm not going to feed the kids tonight. I'm going to ask for help for that because they feel it is my responsibility. I need to do this. And there is no need to be trying to be superwoman. But those are expectations we put upon ourselves a lot of the times, or we accept them. So someone else might be pushing it on you, and then you think, well, you know, yeah, it's my in-laws. I need to accept, even though I'm overwhelmed and I should be saying that I can't handle this right now. But you feel that pressure to then accept. So it's very important that we are self-aware and we know our limits to say, I have just reached my max right now. I can't actually take on anymore. How can I then get help to be able to do to be able to cover this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's the thing, and you touched on that strong, resilient woman thing. One of the things we do in AfroFemme is we believe in becoming braver, but we've decided that we are not going to talk about being stronger, because that stereotype of a strong African woman, it frequently takes away that mental wellness. You stop trying to, you stop wanting to take care of yourself. You want to be strong for everyone else. What is the difference between a positive strong and a negative strong? Is there such a thing? Because I don't think we can take away that strength of a woman. I mean, African women do go through a lot and they do overcome a lot, but to their detriment. That might be why they're actually now facing these mental wellness problems. Is there such a thing as negative and positive strong strength?
If if there isn't, we'll create it here at AfroFed today. I think there is. You know, when I was thinking about this, I think negative strength is probably a lot of bare knuckling. You know, bare knuckling where you're in a fight and no gloves, and I'm just going to, you know, bare knuckle it. And it's just that I'm going to live from day to day. I just need to get through the day, and all that masking that we're talking about, that you almost, you know, wear your war paint, go to war, and you make sure that people don't know that there might be any problems. And that is also an expectation of culture, where you're told you shouldn't air your dirty linen in public. People shouldn't know that there are problems in your home. So you always pretend that everything is fine.
Yeah.
And then not acknowledging any emotions. And I've got a pet issue here in terms of women becoming men in the workplace. You're a woman wherever you go. And I think that is part of the problem. The strength of it is actually us then, you know, losing that femininity because the workplace is demanding us to almost act like men, which is a problem. And then also that comes with a bit of aggression. I've seen women who have been in sort of high level jobs for a long time. They actually become quite aggressive because that's the environment that they've had to live in. Perfectionism, I think, is also a sort of negative strength, where everything must be just so. And then that also pushes you to say, then if nobody can do it right, I'll do it myself. And then you overdo it, you overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
In terms of positive strength, I would like to bring up a concept of psychological resilience. So it's not, we're not talking about sort of just bear it, just you know, be strong for the kids. There's one about, you know, particularly women who are in abusive relationships, or maybe their partners are cheating. They're just told, this is how it is. You just need to, you know, toughen up. It's not that sort of strength. When we talk about psychological resilience, we talk about self-awareness. Am I aware? Do I understand myself? Do I know my story? Have I made peace with my story? That's strength. Self-acceptance, that's strength. Mental flexibility, that's strength. Where you're not rigid and you say, okay, this is not working. How do I then make it work for me? Let me work around this. That's where, you know, all that delegation comes in to say, I
Yeah.
still want this to happen, but I may not be the person who needs to do it. That's mental flexibility, where you're not rigid to say, I'm the one who does the laundry in this house, but you've got 20 other things that you need to do. And that's mental flexibility. Then there's also the idea of self-determination and autonomy. And this is not just self-determination outside, it's inside. Do you own your own thoughts and feelings, or are you sort of a groupthink person? Just go with the groupthink, group feel, whatever else is, do we do that? That's autonomy. Then that will help you then, you know, determine how your life goes. So having your own set of principles that you stick by, values that you stick by, that's strength. Then strength is also realizing your locus of control and owning it, because sometimes you think that you're helpless, but you're not. You've actually got a locus of control, but you're not actually owning it. And it's important to restore that, to say, what can I control? And what can I do something about it? Can I actually do something about? And then let go of what you can't control. I think women, maybe it's by nature, we feel we need to change people. And that's something that then can take away a lot of your strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the idea of have a sense of purpose, that's also strength. A sense of purpose, a sense of vision for your life. You know what, I always ask people this question: do you still have a vision for your life? Or are you just living for day to day? You
Yeah.
know, because having a strong sort of long-term vision for what you want to see, and when I say long-term, it's not just for you, it's for beyond you. After you're gone, what do you want to, what legacy do you want to leave? That sort of a vision will keep you strong during tough times, because you know where you're going. The route, the method might change, but you've got a direction of, this is where I want to go, and gives your life a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. What is the state of your faith? What are your beliefs and values? That's strength. Those are the things that actually make you strong inside. And I think the last one to mention on resilience is strong, positive relationships. We need to draw strength from each other. The issue of Ubuntu, of Uhunu, where we are saying, you know, you are because I am, and then I need to be able to draw strength from you. But women, sometimes we struggle with that. That's a pet issue with women. You know, I believe more in, and I think it's something that we need to promote more of, interdependency, not independence. So there's been a push for independent women, independent, independent, independent. But human beings are not independent. You're not self-made. No one is ever self-made. We are interdependent. We make each other, we contribute. And that requires a lot of emotional vulnerability amongst us as women. For me to be able to come to you and say, I'm not okay, something's up. And for me to be able to trust you, that you are not going to tell the whole world about it, but that we are going to be able to find, you know, that you find a way out for me. It also brings about the issue of accountability as well.
Yeah.
How accountable are we about our emotions and thoughts? Does someone know what's going on with us, or it's all secret and hidden up inside of us? And it will requires us to grow in intimacy and empathy for each other. I think that's maybe my picture of positive strength,
Yeah.
if it exists. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Dr. Chido, those you've just packed in like a 3-month seminar in just a few sentences on defining strength of a woman. And I love it because in AfroFemme, we have this thing we call the BRAVE framework. And it's basically the being body positive, you're focusing on your relationships, being African, the vulnerability. You talked about vulnerability and also our emotional awareness. And that's like the BRAVE acronym. And I just love how you're touching about that. Being strong doesn't mean killing yourself with work and just being there for everyone, but all these positive attributes such as flexibility. You talked about having a vision, talking about positive relationships. And it's so important that we make sure that we are going towards this positive, braver self rather than backwards into that trap of the strong African woman. So if I am sitting on your couch, you're a psychiatrist, and I don't know if you have a couch, but let's say I'm your patient, I'm sitting on your couch, and I am a high functioning, depressed woman. What can I do? What would you advise me to do?
I think I'll talk a little bit about barriers to getting help first, and then sort of end on what can we do about it.
Okay.
Some of the barriers are stigma and fear. So we fear what we don't understand. The idea that is the couch, you know, and I'm afraid, sitting behind, trying to figure your brain out. It's not like that at all. A lot of mental health services are actually just going to your primary care provider and telling them that I feel this way. But that also takes acknowledging it. So acknowledging that there's a problem, which is what the challenge is most of the time. And there's a role for self-screening. Very important that there's lots of tools online, and I think after this chat, this discussion, we're going to produce a little booklet that people can also access, and we will have a few self-screening tools in there where you can say, okay, do I have a problem? Maybe I do, and then from there you can then go to a healthcare provider and say, I think I've got a problem, and I think it's severe enough to need help. The other challenge in terms of barriers to getting help is poor mental health literacy. So not understanding, and I suppose that's what the self-screening is about. You don't seek out help for a problem that you don't believe is a problem. That's part of the issue, that if you don't actually believe that there's a problem, and that's in Africa, language as well is very important because some people, once you say depression, they're like, that's not me, I don't fit into that chair, I don't. So very, very important for us to understand what depression is. That's why we started with a definition, and to be able to then recognize it in yourself and in others. We've got very good health literacy in general. So if you've got a runny nose, a sore throat, and a fever, what do you have? You've got a flu, isn't it? You don't even need to think about it. We've been trained and to recognize the syndromes. But with mental health and emotional issues, sometimes we don't pick it up that these three things, irritability, me shouting at everybody, and me feeling overwhelmed, is actually an emotional problem that I need help for. And then poor mental health seeking behavior, that's because of, the stigma. We mental health practitioners are also stigmatized against, that if you say I'm a psychiatrist, people think, okay, what are you talking about? But you see, that's also, it leads to that poor health seeking behavior where you could walk into a psychologist's room. You just go and just say, I've got a problem, I need help. But that also comes with awareness and understanding.
Just to cut you off, because we're really running short of time. Is money a barrier for people in Zimbabwe?
It's not only in Zimbabwe, I think most of Africa, money is a barrier. There's a general lack of services, poor access as well. In sort of developing countries, there's like 1 per 100,000 population of a mental health worker. This is mental health nurses, social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists. There are not enough people. So that then brings up the issue of private care, and then it becomes expensive because even the state services are overwhelmed.
Okay.
This is compared to 70 in high income countries. So money become an issue. We need to start lobbying for health services to be available privately.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I'm cutting you off there. We don't have any more time left, believe it or not. Could you just run quickly down? I'm just going to go through people's questions if they're important questions, but I'm going to emphasize 2 things. The first one is this chat is recorded, so it's going to be broadcast on the AfroFemme page on Facebook and also on the AfroFemme group for those who missed it. It looks like our live didn't happen, so it is definitely going to be on Facebook. Secondly, all your questions are going to be addressed on those pages. So we are going to save the chat. Everyone is going to be taken into account, and we're going to try and address this. Thirdly, or is it fourthly, we're going to do this again if Dr. Chido is willing to come back, because I feel like we just touched on the surface of this issue. And there's so many people out there who are hiding behind masks, who have issues, who are crying in pain alone at night, but during the day, they're on top of things, they're on point, who don't know what to do. So we need to go deeper into this issue. So Chido, just please tell us your issue or your solutions for if you think this is you, what can we do? Quickly before we close.
Okay. I think that we've already touched on acknowledgement. Acknowledge that there's a problem. You can try and do self-screening and some of the online tools. Mild depression, changes in lifestyle, diet, exercise, and positive interactions with other people really do help. And working on your negative thinking patterns, which can be done. But for moderate and severe depression, you do need further assessment. Try and get to a healthcare provider. I'm not saying a mental health provider, a healthcare provider. It's very important. So that they can at least do a screening for you and then direct you where you can get help. There are a number of services we're going to provide through the AfroFemme platform where you can actually then go and get assistance. But I think that may be what I can say about it. First of all, acknowledge that you've got a problem.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Chido Rwafa-Madzvamutse. We just had such a great time. I'm going to share her email here for those of you who want to get in touch, who are still itching to hear more. Thank you so much. We'll find the recording on the AfroFemme Facebook group. I'm sorry we couldn't get to your questions now, but we're going to address this and we'll definitely do this again. I'm Dr. T, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Steve, for the invitation.
Oh my word, it just ended so quickly.
It did.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
The time flew by.
It flew by. Oh my word.
Even my daughter is crying more than.
Please save our comments.
Yes, we're saving.
Look, Zoom, I'm still on miraculously. So what we're going to do, let's go through the comments. Because they were supposed to stop us and kick us out, but we're still here. So let's just do it as much as possible. So a number of people have failed to tune in. I'm so sorry about that. We only had a max of 100, but I'm sure with some sponsorship, we'll get the 10,000 webinar thing. And then Dr. Matongo says, anecdote from a friend of mine, cousin was getting married and her mother-in-law gave her this advice. A woman is never angry, never tired. That puts pressure on someone to be an acceptable woman.
Yeah,
never angry, never tired.
Which is not human.
You're not human. How can you never get tired? And then Natsai says, I think a lot of African women's experiences are rooted in all the cultural pressures. In an evolving world that's becoming more global, and more than ever, we have exposure to more than one way of life than what culture dictates. That is so powerful. Basically talking about how the culture is making us, is giving the women's experience the issues. And someone says the society is patriarchal, so the woman is expected to take the fall for men. In our society, we can't complain about your husband because eventually the blame will be shifted to you. Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
I think that it definitely is. There's a lot that, and unfortunately, the change will not be just about us women.
Absolutely
It
true.
also means changing.
It needs changing. Can we change?
It's not only women; it's also the men changing. Because even if we empower women, and that's what the whole women empowerment move was about. But you can empower the women, but if the men have not also been dressed and sort of educated and informed, it still remains a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the same person says there's an unfair advantage over men. For example, if you and your husband both are working, after work, you are expected to do the housework whilst he's relaxing.
That's very common. Yeah, and I think goes back to, I think this idea of education of the boy child. There's a lot of emphasis into social, cultural education of women, grooming was a certain role, but unfortunately the young boys actually that that very important because the where they're having the very important that very early on. I think it's also that emotional awareness issue that you need to be aware of not only your own emotion, but that emotional intelligence thing that I can't sit someone else is struggling, maybe I should stand up and kind of help them. And that needs to be groomed in from very early on. And then, of course, the empowerment of women to request, to say, I need help. Can you please me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. Dr. Matongo says, yeah, we must normalize delegation and outsourcing. We are not super women, and we are not less of women if we do that. It's so funny. A friend of mine in Kenya, they were talking, I was telling them that I'm attending a funeral and we'll need to, Varora, you have to get down to business and all that. And she was saying in Kenya, they don't do that anymore. They get caterers. And because they don't have, they'll be working the whole week and then on Saturday they're tired. So they get caterers. Can we start introducing things like that in Zimbabwe? Or will we face some sort of backlash of, hey, what are you trying to do to the culture?
I think we choose this reason is probably women who really struggle with that. But I think we can introduce, I know funeral companies as just that, then it's time. So you hire your kids and then they come and just be Chido friends. And I just have old friends that I just come with for me. But the is, if we do that, we're not addressing the problem. We're not actually saying it's an issue. Yeah.
Okay.
We need to somehow empower women because they've got too much to pay. The culture, yeah,
Okay. I think, okay, we've really run out of time and space. And I just want us to wrap this up so that the recording is not too long as well. But I'm so grateful to have you here, Dr. Chido. It's been such an honor to pick your brain, to get that psychiatric, the real DSM things that we've been learning in medical school. So thank you so much for coming. It's been so wonderful.
Thank you very much for me. And like you say, we want to go towards being braver and facing these difficult conversations, and really getting to and smiling for real, not fake smiles.
Yes, let us be true to ourselves as the real people that we were supposed to be, the real women we were supposed to be. Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch. Let's meet on the AfroFemme private Facebook group. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Steve. Have a great evening.
You too. Have a great, great evening.